Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Secret Sunday session. Thank you so much for joining us for another session. Today I've got Matt LaFontaine with us. Did I get it?
Yeah, that was good enough. I'll leave it there.
No,
That
thank
was
you
perfect.
so much for joining us today on the podcast. I'm so excited to have you on, especially after you have completed your Pull Up for Mental Health Challenge. Also, congratulations on that amazing journey. Before we dive into everything in terms of how you got into this space and really started to focus on your mental health as well, for those people that are not aware who Matt is, who is he and what does he do with himself?
So thank you very much for having me. I'm really excited for this. I'm Matt. Live down in Mornington along the Mornington Peninsula. Spent most of my life down here. Lived in Western Australia for a couple of years, a few years back, which was great. But a bit about me, I work in horticulture. So I work with a whole bunch of plants. We're a production-based nursery, so very fit and very active sort of job, which I love. Just very passionate about the mental health space. I have my own little community that I started at the start of the year back in January, where we host sessions twice a week. We'll dive into that, I'm sure. But outside of that, love my sport, love pushing myself, and just have a passion for just helping others live their best lives, I guess. And it looks different for everyone. So it's really a bit about me. Just work, love my mental health, or love helping others with their mental health. And yeah, just passionate about people and community.
I love it. And a lot of people in the mental health space, we come back to our why we got into this space in the first place. And sometimes a lot of that is driven by personal experiences or someone that they know that has been through something. For you, what is your motivator? Why be in this space? Why opt to do the amazing work that you do?
For me, it's just trying to be the person that I didn't have at the time when I needed it the most. I felt there was a period of time where I felt very lonely. This was around COVID, so I think a lot of us experienced this, but felt very lonely, felt very isolated. Didn't feel like there was a lot of support around me. I did live at home, but I think the idea of talking to my family was quite intimidating for me. I found vulnerability quite challenging at the time, and it took a while for me to really open up. And so sort of what I'm doing in the mental health space is encouraging people to have those conversations, know that there are people there that will listen and that things can change. But with that, there needs to be action as well. So, I can be the person to encourage people to try and live a happier, healthier life, but I can't do it for them as well. So I do encourage people to just understand that they need to know what's going on in their lives and then implement the change required to, find themselves where they want to be. So my why is essentially I've seen and felt what it's like to be at my lowest, to the point of which I didn't want to be alive anymore. I tried to take my life back in 2020. To have gone from there to where I am now, I feel very much empowered and feel as though it's my purpose to help others get through that too, because everyone deserves to live their best life. So that's my why.
I love that. And congratulations, as I said, on that journey to come from such a dark place to where you are today. I mean, what a turnaround. I do want to touch on those moments and that dark place because a lot of us can sometimes fall into that. How dark did it get for you? And why do you think, as you said, you felt these immense feelings of being alone and on your own? A lot of us fall into that. A lot of us feel almost like it's innate in us humans that if we withdraw from our tribe or if we don't have a community, and being on our own is like the worst thing someone can experience. For you, why was that? Why was that such a pressure or such an immense, deep and dark feeling to be on your own?
I think for me, it stems to something that I still battle with now, and it's just that voice in your head, that inner critic that, if it gets the better of you, can really put you down. It's essentially like bullying yourself, really. And when you're on your own and you're essentially bullying yourself, you're always just feeling horrible. So in that time, yeah, I just found as though being on my own was going to be the only thing that was going to make me feel better, because I just didn't want to be around anyone. But then also when I was on my own was when I was probably at my worst. So it was an unhealthy time. Looking back on it, it's not how I would handle things if those feelings were here now, but it's a learning curve, and it's something I had to work through in order to get to where I am now. And, I've learned that even now when things get hard, I do encourage myself to sit with my feelings for a little bit, just to understand what's going on. But then from there, I can't just let it overtake me, because that's where things get really bad. So reflecting on it, being on my own was something I wanted to do when I wasn't feeling great, but it was probably the worst thing I could have done. And that's why I obviously now encourage people to talk to others.
And you mentioned this happened during COVID. do you look at COVID as the experience that triggered this for you?
I think it was heavily contributing. Yeah, I remember at the start of it, I actually at the start got quite frustrated at the fact that I had to keep working. I'm still working in the plant nursery, and I thought I want a few weeks off. Like, why do I have to go to work? We all we do is take care of plants. And in hindsight, was very grateful that I was able to work in that time. But I think it was just the repetitive nature of going to work, going home, going to sleep, waking up, and just doing it again. And then it would get to the weekend, and I would just be sitting at home doing nothing. And I guess with that, I'd just play a lot of video games. I'd just drink alone at home. Like the habits were really poor. I lost all the things that made me feel better, socializing, exercise, all these things that are really good for my mental health. I lost all that. So COVID just definitely wore me out. And I guess it limited the amount of people I had around me. And at the time, there was definitely a relationship I was in that wasn't very healthy for me either. And the one person I had who I wanted to lean on was someone who was probably not helping my mental health at all, but I felt like I had no one else. So I just stayed in that because it felt comfortable for me. And I was too scared to sort of release that. So I think all in all, just the isolation and the fact that, yeah, what COVID gave to us was definitely a big reason as to why I felt that way.
It's funny you mentioning that idea around comfort
Mm,
because so often we opt to choose comfort over doing the work and getting out of a rut and getting out of the moments and experiences that we're in because it's easier and
yep,
it's what we know. And sometimes we do like to sit in the suffering and the hurt as like something that we feel we deserve or that we need or is going to only fulfill that void that we have in our life at that point in time.
yep. I think as well with that is like it's the fear of change for one. But I think what's worth noting is that you can sit in the pain and discomfort and let it be hard, or you can make the change and also let it be hard. So change is difficult, but either way, it's going to be hard. It's just a matter of deciding, do you want to grow? Do you want to get out of that rut? Or do you just want to sit in it because it is comfortable? And I guess it's just up to people to choose which kind of hard that they want. So yeah, it's not easy. It's definitely not easy.
Nah, oh, nothing in life is.
Yeah,
Um, but I think that's the beauty of it as well, is that through all the hard work, you have all these amazing lessons and you keep evolving and growing as a human being. And that's quite beautiful to witness. But I mean, looking at that part of your life, what do you think you needed in that moment?
I needed community and I needed people around me. I was playing footy at the time, and to have just sort of lost that whole community was so challenging. I needed, I wasn't able to see my friends. We're obviously stuck in that 5K radius for most of it. And when you're living along the Mornington Peninsula, one side of that 5K radius is water and the other half is only 2.5K. So your limits are really small. So I think for me, I just missed the people around me. I just missed being able to have fun and just have that freedom to do what I want. It felt like I was almost in prison. Like I couldn't go outside without feeling uncomfortable, or even driving to work was scary. So I think just that it wasn't even just isolation from people, it was just everything. It felt like I couldn't do anything. I was so restricted. And I mean, it genuinely felt like I was just getting strangled. So to answer that question, it was just people. I just love being around people and having a laugh and being with my friends and just having a fun time, having that freedom. And I definitely felt like I lost it.
Were you ever scared of the feelings that came up during that time?
Yeah. I mean, it led to me wanting to take my life. I thought that COVID was going to last forever. I genuinely thought that COVID was never going to go anywhere, and it was just going to get worse. Um, and it was scary because these feelings every day, I'd wake up feeling anxious. I'd wake up and it felt like I was about to go and play a footy grand final. Felt sick in the stomach. Would struggle to eat. Would drive to work. I'd listen to sad music. I'd be contemplating suicide almost every day, and I felt like this was my new norm. And I still remember moments of just feeling as though there's no way I'll ever be happy again. I thought that was going to be my norm. And to the point where I thought it was just going to be all over for me. And, it sucked that I had to get to that lowest point in order to move forward. But in hindsight, very grateful that that was what helped provoke action, and then further lead me to where I am now and trying to help people that felt the way I did at that time. So I was so scared of how I was feeling. I thought it was going to hang around forever, and I'm super grateful that it didn't. But that's why I feel like I'm in a point of privilege that I was able to get through that. Some people don't, and now I can be a voice for those people who feel like they don't have a voice.
I want to touch on this, and obviously there is a trigger warning with this podcast. We're obviously discussing suicide and mental health, and that can bring up a lot for people. But I've touched on this previously on podcasts, and I think it's really important to note the mindset that people get in, because people shame a lot of people that opt to take their own life or consider taking their own life, saying it is the easy road out. And I've addressed this a couple of times, saying in terms of the mindset that I know when I was in that situation of sometimes when you are so deep in those feelings that the idea of taking your own life feels like it just must be better because what you're in right now really sucks. So, like, leaving that feeling and leaving your body and leaving this environment, it's unknown when you take your life. And when you leave this earth, that feeling is unknown, and that seems so much more brighter and happier than feeling what you're feeling right now. Can you talk us through your mindset in terms of what led you to consider taking your own life? Like, what was the mindset, and why did you decide that that was your only option?
Hmm. It's a great question. I've never been asked something like that. For me, I think it was just like it was something that was wearing me away. So over time, the anxiety was there, and then as it was hanging around, the depression would slowly get worse, which would lead into suicidal thoughts. And then I think the idea of COVID not going anywhere, it just felt like it was consistent. And like I said, I just felt like it was going to hang around forever. It was just these feelings would spark up, and they'll be worse on days. Some days they'd be okay, and some days they'd be really bad. The night that I attempted, it was quite interesting because before then I was hanging out with some friends. I was drinking, which obviously wouldn't have helped, but I was having a good time as far as I was concerned. But then it just hit a point where I think alcohol for me probably, I don't know how to word it exactly, but it definitely amplified, I guess, my negative feelings. And I think that if I wasn't under the influence, I don't think it would have happened. But I think I was just at a breaking point. I think there were so many things that had happened, and I just let it build up. I go back to this whole idea of, imagine you're pushing a ball into a pool. I was pushing that ball further and further and further down. As you push it further down, it's harder to hold on to, and then at some point, it's just going to explode. And that's what happened to me. I pushed it down so far that it ended up just exploding. And so, yeah, it's just sort of, it was just a slow burn to the point where I just thought it was all too much. And then I just felt like it was the only way out. Like you said, it felt like for me, it was the only escape. Otherwise, that was just going to be life forever. And I didn't want to do that.
Mm. And I think it is important to note that obviously someone can choose or have the thoughts of wanting to be suicidal at any stage in life. But I think sometimes when you are a little bit younger as well, and I know even in my own experience, when you don't have that maturity or rational brain, or if you're under the influence, you can't sort of have that counter argument.
Mm,
Often we do have those counter arguments in our mind that, consider this. You might have this thought of like, I just want to end my life, but then that rational thought can come in and sometimes convince you out of it. Whereas other times when there are influences, or when I say like when you are younger, you don't often have that counter argument there to pull you away from it. And that's where it can be really difficult.
mm,
What in that moment, and if there is any point where you don't want to discuss anything, please shift,
mm-hmm.
divert.
Yep.
Um, what pulled you out?
Um, Honestly, I was very lucky that I had friends who were looking for me. I kind of left the night that I was at quite abruptly. I didn't think I made it obvious, so I thought I got out just fine. And they were fortunate enough that they had an inkling of where I might have been, and I was very fortunate enough that I had a friend of mine find me before it was too late. And yeah, it's quite scary and sad to think about that. Um, but I was so fortunate to have had them be there for me. Otherwise, things would be different now. And then from there, it was quite a scary time. I was hysterically crying after that. The rest of that night just is a massive blur. All I remember was seeing my family dog run up to me, and that was when I knew that my family was aware of what was going on, and that yeah, my life was going to change. And it was really, really challenging. But like I said before, it became the moment that I knew I needed to make a change. I couldn't keep going on the way I was. People around me knew how I was feeling, therefore I had to make a change. And so, it sucks that I had to get to that lowest point in order to make the change. But in hindsight, I'm just so grateful that I had my friends be aware that I wasn't doing very well, that I'd left, and then find me in a place where they knew I was going to do it, where I would feel comfortable.
Can I ask, when your friend found you and when your family found out, did you feel any shame?
Um, You know what? No, I don't think I did. Now that I think about it, I didn't. I think I just felt pain. I think that was the overriding feeling I had because that was just how I was feeling. I don't think I felt shame in that moment at all. I just remember hysterically crying and just feeling so much pain and hurt. I don't know if shame is the right word, but I think I became even more emotional at the thought of what I just did to the people around me. I don't know if shame is the right word for that. Perhaps it is now that you've got me reflecting. But yeah, I just felt like I just invited everyone into the life that I was living, which wasn't a good one. And so it was a pretty scary idea and a pretty sad sort of moment. So yeah, I think just pain was the main thing I was feeling.
As you say that, it's funny, like I reflect back. It's really hard to explain, I think, to people as well that haven't experienced that sort of deep pain. And when I talk about deep pain, for me, what comes up is pit of the stomach, where it's like so tight and so intense, where you can't breathe, you can't function, you can't think. And it's like overrides your whole system that you don't almost feel in your body.
Hmm.
And you don't have reason, where you just feel like there's no out. And people can sometimes reflect on that and think, but yeah, like this just comes from like this idea of being on your own or by yourself. Like, I don't understand. But that's, I think, sometimes where we talk about like mental health coming in, and when you don't have daily practices, and when someone is consistently experiencing this pain without having a support network, as you said, it can be like that ball that just keeps getting pushed down until someone opens up a door, being allowing you to release that, or you find a way out of it. And for you, you said you had family and you had friends that then were the open to the fact that you were struggling. How did it look from then? How did you find a way to then, all right, I need to change? And what did change look like?
Mm, great question. A lot of the weeks after that are quite blurry for me, which I think is just a natural response to something like that. But I do remember one of the first things I started doing was I had to talk to people about what was going on. I found it quite challenging talking to my family about it. Not too sure as to why. I think just it felt way too close to home. So I talked to my manager at work. His name's LG, and he was great. He was someone who I was able to talk to about how I was feeling. I had a few psychology appointments around that time, and he just said, just do it whenever you want. Just let me know when you're doing it. He also encouraged me to do some breath work in the morning. So he said, just take 15 minutes in the morning when you get to work to just do some breath work and do the things that help you feel better. And, that was really eye opening for me because it gave me that person who supported me and who I felt like I never had. But he was always there. That's the thing. He was always there. I just didn't lean on him, didn't talk to him, was too scared to let him know what was going on. And then the moment I decided to do it, I realized how much support he was able to give me and how much he wanted to give me because he actually cared so much for me. And so I was so grateful. And he was the start. And then from there, it was just changing bad habits. So I had a little bar fridge in my room, which I sort of kept a few drinks cold, which at the time was just, I can't believe I even did that. Someone like me, but got rid of that out of my room, tried to cut out video games. Just, I think I was using that. If I lost in something, I'd just be so self-critical. So trying to push that aside and not do that was also helpful. Got back into exercise, found a passion for college football and punting. So I started just trying to learn a new skill, which I think was something really important too, because I actually look forward to doing that every day. So for me, the change came from, for one, opening up and talking about it, two, removing bad negative habits, and three, maybe implementing something new, something you're passionate about, or something that's going to sort of excite you every day, because I didn't have that. And then eventually that led to me, I moved to WA, I moved to Western Australia maybe a year after this. So I was still healing a year later. I still wasn't feeling like my true self. And then, yeah, that change was great because essentially I got to start fresh. So it's hard to encourage people to just move into state if they're struggling, but I definitely just recommend any sort of change, figuring out what's not serving you, what you want to bring into your life, and just doing more of it.
And how can someone build up the courage or the strength to take that first step and to take that risk? Because as you said, it's so scary. Often we know what we have to do. We know maybe the places we have to go, or the things we've got to try. We've got the plan in place, but taking that step is absolutely freaking terrifying. What
It
can
is.
get people to that line?
Well, I think that I think a lot of people know what it is they need. It's a question that I often ask people if they're maybe not feeling great, is just, yeah, what do you feel like you need right now? What's going to help you right now? Because if you get people thinking about it, most of the time, or 99% of the time, I reckon they know what they need or what they don't need. But I think it's just about a perspective shift. I think too often people fear judgment, fear like, what if it goes wrong? What if this happens? What if that happens? And I guess that comes from when you're in a negative mindset, everything that you think about is going to be the worst case scenario. But I think it's about shifting that mindset to what if actually everything goes really, really well and I do feel better for this. It's about figuring out the things as well that serve you better than others. I mean, we talk about all these things that help mental health, from cold plunges to breath work and all these really positive things that do support our mental health. But if it's not something you enjoy, it's not actually going to have the benefits for you. You can't force yourself to do something because you've been told it's good for your mental health. So it's important to have a look at the things that can support your mental health and just giving it a go. But I think it's just about having a think about, people know what it is they need to do. The first step, I think, is always just talking to someone about it, whether it's a stranger, whether it's a friend, family member. That's always the first step. And then from there is just thinking about the things you want to bring in. It's just a perspective shift. I think people often are too scared, but I think they need to realize that once they get started, it turns out to be, I'm not going to say easier than expected, but it's going to end out more positive than what they first thought.
And it's always just that first step. I find in most things in life, you've just got to make that first step. And then once you're there, I think, yeah, easy is not the right word, but it becomes more natural and you feel more
Mm,
ease within yourself and you build up the confidence along the way because you're proving to yourself that you can do it and you have done it. And continuing to turn up for yourself is worth it. And
yeah.
I think that was kind of what I also sort of learnt through, listening to your journey, as well as you've come from such a dark place to then taking that big leap of faith and moving interstate. Of course, can't always recommend everyone just to get
Mm,
up, pack up your life and move,
yeah.
but taking that step and kind of as well getting to a place where you're on your own again, but in a whole different way. So
Yeah.
you have left an environment where, you're filled with so much anxiety and so much stress and in a deep, dark place of isolation. And then you've kind of moved, taken the risk, and put yourself back into that environment, but trusting yourself in the sense that you are going to be on your own and be okay. And I'm kind of interested to know that mindset because you've gone from like one quite negative place to another place that you're in a similar environment yet a different mindset. Like how was that different for you?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because the moment I actually came back to Victoria for the first time after I'd moved, it was one of the first things I thought about. I was like, whoa, I'm back to where I was before, and I don't feel anxious. I don't feel as depressed. I feel lighter. I feel happier, and it was really enjoyable for me to have come back, because that was the first moment that I was able to consciously see the shift, or the positive shift in my life. It wasn't scary to come back at all. If anything, it was probably exciting. I think I knew when I'd come back for the first time from Western Australia to visit Victoria, I knew I was in a better headspace. But to really be here and feel that was just incredible. Even being at home in my room, I went from obviously feeling like I was lonely in that room, isolated, was drinking, playing video games, to be back in that room feeling that way. It was relief. It was so much relief, and it was such a good experience. But I guess that's another thing to point out too, is that when we change things and we're not feeling great, it's not going to happen straight away. It's not going to happen in a week. You might start noticing a difference in a month, but it's an ongoing process. And, it's part of the human experience. Just because I feel better doesn't mean I'm happy all the time. We can't be happy all the time. And that's just part of it. It's just about trying to get in a better mindset that no matter what emotions or feelings we have, we can approach it all in the best way possible. And it kind of reflects on the last question of taking that first step. Often there's that anxiety and the fear and the nerves, but I think it's about embracing that. And like you said, proving to yourself that you can do it. And so for me to have, I grew up very socially anxious, would always latch to my parents for everything. That if they told me to do something, I'd say, can you come with me? Can you do it with me? To have gone as a kid who was like that, to then driving across Australia on his own into a state where he knew no one, was just, yeah, it was a massive step. But I'm so grateful I did it, and it's led to what my life is now, and I'm so grateful for it.
Makes me feel so good. I just can
Mm,
just imagine you driving in that freeing feeling of you letting go of a past version of yourself and finding out that new version. I think that's the most exciting thing about life that
yeah,
we can feel so scared about, which is so valid. But when you find yourself and know who you are and know what you want, and you do that on your own, it is so empowering. And you don't feel like you need to prove it or post a photo of it on social media or create a reel to prove to everyone
mm,
of who you've become, because you know within yourself that you have done the work and you've turned up for yourself and you've found that version of yourself. And knowing that even if you lose people along the way, and I think that that's sometimes what stops people is they are so scared of, kind of the highlight of this podcast is being on your own and alone and feeling like you're going to lose the people that are around you. But sometimes I think we know deep down that not always our circles are there for us. They might be there for a version of ourselves we think are us,
yeah.
but not until you figure out who you are, you will start attracting the right people. And I think that's when you come out of that feeling like you don't fit in, because sometimes you're just entertaining groups that are never really meant for you anyway.
100%. And I think we spoke about this. I don't know if it was in the podcast or beforehand because we spoke a lot beforehand, but um, I think what you're saying I heavily resonate to because I've definitely drifted away from a lot of people who I used to be friends with and I've gravitated to new people. And looking back on it, I think that's because the person I was a year ago before then was a different person till now. And so being that different person or being that version of myself is going to attract people that that version aligns with. But that wasn't my truest self. I've done a lot of work to be the person I am or be my true self. I'm simply myself now and I love it. But to be that version of myself, I'm attracting the people that align with me now. And that's why I feel so happy and empowered because I found people who align with me. If you're going to put a mask on, you're only going to attract the people that match up to that person. But a quote that I love is, be yourself, for you don't know who will love the person you hide. And it's true. I think so many people are too scared to be themselves, but I think that they need to. I encourage people to be as authentic as possible because you'll find the people who you deserve and who align with you.
Couldn't agree more. And looking at that then of how to be yourself or find yourself, what would you say to people? How are they to go on that quest and figure out who they are?
It goes against what we said before in a way, but it's just you need to be on your own. I think you just really need to spend some time on your own. I think we need that time on our own to really figure out who we are, what our values are, what our beliefs are, and our vision going forward. I think we all have it within us, but too often we don't really dive into it. And for me, for my personal experience, so to put this on a personal level, I stood away from the things that I didn't feel like were serving me the same way. I wasn't enjoying footy last year. In fact, I was almost despising it. I really did not want to play. The people that were in my life, look, I can appreciate the people they are, but in terms of where I wanted to go and my vision going forward, they just didn't align with that. So I just had to spend some time to myself. I moved a bit further south down the peninsula, spent some more time and moved in with some people who I knew but didn't know them really well, but I felt like I really connected well with them. And so to separate myself from my past tribe, if you will, stepping out on my own was probably the number one thing in order to be able to find who I was and then just lean into the parts of me that I'm passionate about, which is just being kind, being loving, being positive, being energetic, and just being almost a little kid as well. I think that's also really important. But I think we all have it within us, and I think it's a feeling that we all know. But I think too often we push to the side and we just keep tracking on and being who we are, even though it's not our true self.
Trying to tick everyone else's box instead of our own.
Yep,
Mm.
100%.
Did
Yep.
you feel, or even now, like we talk about that not everybody has highs in their life and not everybody has great days. We have to acknowledge that we're all human and we experience emotions that are not always great. Do you ever get tempted to go back to the old environments, the old patterns, the old people?
No, no. Some of the
Why?
old people, I'll say yes to some of the old people just because I've built so much love for them. They're not people who I see as people who might help me on my pursuit to where I'm going, but they're people who I have a lot of love for and a lot of memories and experiences with. The number of people within that category then is very limited, very, very small. But no, I'm not tempted at all. I mean, I used to love going out and partying and doing dumb things. And don't get me wrong, I love having a few drinks now, but that just doesn't serve me anymore. It's just not who I am. I think the thing looking back on it all too is I knew deep down the person I was, but I was too scared to show it off. But now as well, like I went back to footy this year. I played 6 months of footy at the end of the year, but I was not the person who I used to be in that footy environment. I was myself. I loved rocking up to footy with my nails painted, would ask the guys how their mental health's going, like just breaking those stigmas around what is expected of someone in that space. But I honestly, I don't have any inkling to go back to that. Even video games, I still have my PlayStation set up in my room. I don't even want to look at it. It's just not something that I know serves me. It's just not good for me. So no desire at all.
Going back to that footy environment, did you fear judgment?
Yes, I used to. Yeah, without a doubt. It stems from my loneliness from growing up and even from COVID, just feeling like I had to fake myself in order to fit in with people around me. I always felt like a bit of an outsider and I had to really force myself to fit in. That was such a thing for so long. I knew I was a good person and I've always been a nice, kind person, but I was very scared to really express myself to my truest self or truest form for a very long time. And I probably didn't even get to do that until this year. I think for me, my transformation started almost a year ago today. So the person I am now has always been there, always been hiding, but now he's being expressed to his truest form. So that judgment isn't there anymore because I know that if people don't align with who I am and what I'm doing, and being that, because I'm very much a feministic kind of person, if people don't align with that, then that's their fault because the people who will gravitate towards me are my people.
It's interesting, we start this conversation a lot around men's mental health and identities and how the environment has definitely changed to what traditional, I think, what a man and a woman sort of have been conditioned to be. And we talk about that fear of judgment, especially in a footy and a sports sense, because often that is not talked about. And if someone was to enter a football environment or a sporting environment, I can only talk from being in Australia, but coming to that environment, as you said, and developing, say, more feministic traits, they're not always liked or they are quite often judged. How was that received by teammates, do you
Yeah,
feel?
I think really good. I think that coming into the footy club that I moved to, a lot of guys had heard who I was just through the work I was doing in the space, and then through the fact I played footy against a lot of them as well. So they knew who I was, which helped a lot. But I think that look, the Mornington Football Club is a club. I really want to give them a shout out because what they're promoting there is incredible. They now have women's football programs, they have the netball programs. They're a young group, but they're guided very, very positively through their captain coach, Josh Newman. They do a thing every Tuesday night where called Bulldog Brothers, where they'll actually get a player to go up and answer a variety of different vulnerable questions in front of the whole group. And it's designed around giving people a chance to have their voice and encourage others to see that from someone else and get to know each other on a deeper level. Because I think too often in those environments, it's very surface level. It can be very toxic, very toxic. But what they're promoting there and creating is a space that I align with, and that's probably the only reason why I decided to go there. And it's definitely changing, but I was definitely like taken on very well by everyone. Like I would have my nails painted most weeks and they're like, oh, I love the nails. They look so good. And I think that they just embrace the fact that I'm being authentic and that's what they're trying to do as well. So I think they just can see what I'm doing, what I'm preaching and promoting, and they're taking it on.
It's one of those things where I think no matter who you are or what you do, if you are strong and you know your values and you know what you want, then no one can really stop you unless you allow them to.
100%. And I don't like the idea of stereotypes or categorizing people based on their communities or, where they work or anything. I don't believe in that at all. I think that instead of putting people into categories and stereotypes, I think people just need to be encouraged to be their authentic self. I think no one should be placed into a category or a stereotype. I think people just need to simply be themselves. And that's the only expectation anyone should ever have.
Oh, and that's why a lot of people get into these deep, dark places is because they're not being their authentic self. So couldn't agree more with that. I then want to touch on your Pull Up for Mental Health challenge. Now, for those that aren't following you or don't know anything about what it is, what did you do? And talk us a little bit about the pull-ups and how many you decided to do and how the body is after doing them.
Yeah.
How did it come about? Why did you want to do it?
Yeah. So I've been always someone who's very ambitious, and with everything I do, I feel like there's always more that can be done. I've done quite a few fundraisers in the mental health space. I cut off a big mullet of mine for $7,000, which was pretty cool. But with this, end of last footy season, I couldn't run. I had osteitis pubis, so basically a pubic overload. Was told I couldn't run for 4 months. Very limited walking, no gym, like no lower body gym weights. And as someone who played football and loved running, I was stuck. I didn't know what to do, and so I started taking on pull-ups just for fun. I don't really know why. I think at the time Ned Brockman was doing pull-ups, so I think I was heavily inspired by him. So yeah, I just started doing them, and then slowly just started training and accumulating big numbers, and eventually got to the point where I went from, first session I did just over 100. A few months later, I was doing over 1,000 very easily. New Year's Day, I did 2,000, and I just wanted to do something bigger. I wanted to do something that brought the community together, that promoted a message. And so with that, I decided to do 3,249 pull-ups. So that's as many suicides as there were in Australia in 2022. And I was going to give myself 24 hours to do this challenge. I decided to do it in alignment with World Mental Health Day. So that was on the 10th of October, so just recently, with my challenge being on the 12th of October on the Saturday. So yeah, I decided I was going to take on this challenge. I'd trained for it for a long time. And then, yeah, with that, instead of it being a fundraiser, I see all these challenges, and everyone's always trying to fundraise and donate towards a charity, which is fantastic. But I am very much heavily involved with the idea of just action. So I wanted to give people a chance to just to give action, I guess. So what I did was I created a mental health wellness day where I invited all these businesses to come down and provide their services to the public for free. So my idea of supporting me was I was encouraging people to come down and support their mental health, and that was their way of supporting me rather than giving me money, because so many people are like, I want to donate. I'm like, nah, you got to come down. So I just wanted to have a more active approach on this and create what was an amazing day. We had the businesses that came down had such a great experience. The people who came down had such a good time, and had some really, really lovely words from those people who did attend. And yeah, it was a magical day. And yeah, sure enough, I was able to do the 3,249 pull-ups in a little under 8 hours. So yeah, it was such an incredible day, and I'm feeling pretty good. It's been 5 days since I've done it. Shoulders and elbows are still a bit sore, but overall feeling pretty good.
Wow, absolutely incredible to think. I mean, one, that you loved doing pull-ups. I mean, I couldn't think of anything worse.
Yeah.
But congratulations. And even in that time frame, like that is, you gave yourself 24 hours, and you said 8 hours you
Yeah,
did it in?
yeah, 7 hours, 40 minutes. Yeah.
I mean, we talk about, mental toughness and being really strong in that sense, but what was the thoughts that were in your head? Like, was there any negativity whatsoever? Like, what was the dialogue that you kept repeating yourself?
On the day, it's just, I had to just keep reminding myself why I was doing it. If I'm honest, the day of the challenge when I did the 3,249, that was probably the easiest session I did because I had people around me. The idea of doing that number, the pull-ups don't directly have a correlation with mental health, but instead I'm trying to highlight the amount of suicides there are in Australia every year. Because when people say, well, it's a lot of pull-ups, it's like, yeah, it's a lot of suicides too. And so I just had to remind myself that every single pull-up that I was doing was for a life that was lost. And so that was my attempt for the day, to try and just encourage people to come down and support their own mental health, and just try and create or promote this message and be a beacon of hope for people within the community who are struggling with their mental health. And it was just reminding myself that. But in the lead up, in the training leading in, it was so hard just being at that bar doing, I probably did 50,000 pull-ups leading into that event. And just to do that mostly on my own, staring at a blank wall, it was so challenging. But it just showed that the power of having people around you when you're doing hard things or going through hard times or a struggle. When you have people around you, it's so much easier. So on the day, I just had the best experience. There's a few moments where it got difficult, but I never doubted myself.
What would you think if your younger self, and he was going through obviously a world pandemic at the time, he was sitting in that room watching you do those pull-ups? What do you think he would be thinking?
I think he would get quite emotional, to be honest. I think he would think it's very surreal that there's no way that's going to happen. That's not me. There's no way I'll ever be able to do that. Back then, I hated doing pull-ups. I never did them. When I had to do them in my gym program for footy, I'd just avoid them. I think he would be so surprised at the fact he was able to do that. I think that I've always, for quite a while now, I've definitely thought that I'm very capable of a lot, and I still do believe in that. And it's really exciting to feel that way. But back then, I don't think I had that feeling. And so, yeah, I think in short, I just feel surprised, shocked, like probably proud as well. but I think he would have felt like that wasn't real because the way he was feeling, he felt like there was no way that anything was ever good, like nothing good was ever going to happen to him again.
Well, you've ticked a phenomenal box and done so much for mental health, not only in this country, but around the world, knowing that, there's that many suicides. I think we do need to highlight that that is such a high number. Any number is a high
Mm,
number because that's a life lost. And
yeah.
to do that for those people and for yourself, I think is absolutely phenomenal. And thank you for really starting that conversation in that space because, as you said, and even in that concept of getting people there, it's so easy for people to, yeah, I'll just donate, I'll just support, I'll just like, I'll just comment. But this issue is real and
Mm,
it's happening. And it's not until you start paving the way in your own life that it creates ripples. And I feel sometimes in this space, we lose that. We lose the idea of we all just want to jump on a movement or a campaign and say that we're starting the conversation, but action needs to be taken because these families are still left without loved ones. The fact that you are paving the way in this space, you should be so proud knowing where you've come from. And I thank you so much for what you're doing.
no, thank you. I appreciate it. It's just beautiful that I've turned something so painful into something so powerful. And it is my purpose now, and I heavily believe that. And I have a massive passion for people, for community, for just living life to the best, or the best, to our ability, I guess. And so, yeah, I'm so grateful to be here and to be doing that because, like I said, once upon a time, that nearly was all taken from me. So I'm just trying to be a voice for the people who feel like they don't have it.
And where's next? Where's, as a personality that keeps reaching for that high or reaching for that best? What does it look like for you? What's next on the chapter?
It's actually funny you say that. Yesterday, I started writing down my vision for what is next because the last year had taken up by this event. So now it is thinking about what's next. But for me, the work in the mental health space isn't done. Since my event on Saturday, I definitely have taken time to reflect, but I haven't sat in that too much because I know that there is more to be done. So I've now created something quite beautiful with, I guess, my own personal branding side of things. I feel like I am starting to be a name of people that here within the mental health space, and I want to have that impact on people. So for me, just about creating an idea of, I guess, where I go forward here with my own personal side of things. I've got a few things in mind with physical challenges, one of which is early next year, another one maybe late next year, just with the intent to have a message behind it to encourage mental health. And further to that as well, with my safe space stuff I do twice a week, I really just want to keep expanding that because I feel like people deserve the space to be their true authentic self, to be able to be vulnerable, to be able to connect with people on a deeper level. So yeah, my life's definitely going to be split between safe space and giving more people a safe space, and just trying to, I guess, yeah, personalize myself and just create something quite beautiful with what I'm doing and encourage people to take change or make change, sorry, and take on life a bit more positively.
Which is so important, talking about the two factors, because often sometimes we put all of our eggs in one basket, and I'm definitely someone that does that.
Yeah,
Um, when you give, 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 and give, but you also need to be, I think, working on yourself and not devoting so much of your worth into one space. And such an important message. And I really value this conversation. I'm so grateful that you've jumped on today. I do want to end on a couple of questions,
mm-hmm.
and then you're off the hook. You're fine. You can go.
Nice. Nerves are
Uh,
gone now.
yeah, yeah. Uh, First question for someone that would be listening to this that is in that period where they don't know who they are, they don't know where they fit or who they want to be, and they feel lost and they feel like the people that they're with maybe aren't the right people for them. What would be your message to them right now?
Well, if they are listening at this point, firstly, thank you for listening. If anyone is listening to this point, it's so special that someone's wanted to be here and listen to my story. But I hope that maybe they've taken something away from what I said in regards to maybe the action side of things. But just know that there are people out there that are wanting to listen to you. And often people talk about burdening others when when they're talking about wanting to open up to others. But I think it's a load of crap. I think it's just a bit of a fear in doing that. I think what people need to realize is that if someone was to come up to me personally and want to talk about their feelings, it's so far from being a burden. It shows me that they trust me. They want to open up to me, and it's honestly one of the biggest compliments ever. So just know that there are people out there who want to support you, and then just identify the parts of your life that aren't making you feel good, and cut them out. Implement new things that you're going to be passionate about, or something. Just keep doing things that help make yourself feel worthy. I think when people aren't doing well mentally, they're very self-critical. find the things that make you feel a bit worthy and tick them off every day. You know, it could be as simple as doing one push-up a day. If you can tick that box every day, you're proving to yourself that you are worthy. So just finding those little ways of being able to create little wins within your days as well is such a big thing. And then, yeah, just spend time on your own and really just dive into the person you are and the person you want to be. It can be really hard for some people, but an exercise I love to do is write down a few people who you're inspired by or who you look up to. Write down the parts of them that you appreciate, and then try and find the common words in that and break it down, because that'll help you actually find what your values and beliefs are, which then can then potentially guide you forward or give you a better understanding of who you are. So I've sort of thrown a few things out there, but number one is know that there's people out there to listen. 2, cut out bad habits. 3, implement positive ones. And then just start doing them more frequently.
That's incredible. Great practical skills. Secondly, for yourself, obviously it has been quite a long journey for you, and there's been probably many lessons throughout that journey. But what is the one thing that's probably stuck with you as the biggest lesson that's helped you to get to where you are today?
I think just the power of being your truest, authentic self. It's massive, and just really expressing it and being proud of that, because you can't be someone else. That you simply can only be yourself. I think too often we get caught up in that mask that I was talking about earlier, and being someone that's not our truest self. There's parts of it, but it's not our truest self. And with that, you'll only align with people who align with that version of yourself. But if you can really just have an understanding of who you are, life just becomes so much more fun. And actually it becomes almost easier, because then you have a better understanding of the people you want to be around, the activities you want to do in your life, and what things serve you purpose. I think it's just about really trying to find your truest, authentic self.
Lastly, what do you want your legacy to be?
I wanted to be seen as this person who just spread so much kindness and positivity and just made people want to just be happy. You know, I think when I'm trying to reflect on the person I'm trying to be now, I just want to, every time I'm around people, I want them to feel comfortable. I want them to feel happy. I want them to smile. That's the biggest thing. And have fun as well. I think that too often we take life very seriously. And so I'm just trying to make life a bit more fun, more enjoyable, more comfortable for people. But yeah, I just want to be known as someone who tried to inspire everyone to be the best version of themselves.
Beautiful. You're done. You're off the hook. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Secret Sunday Session. It has been an absolute pleasure to get to know you and get to know your story and your why and your reason for being in this space. And it's so important, and the work that you're doing is absolutely incredible. And I want to thank you on behalf of the community and people in this space, that we need more people like you in here that are, they're not just talking, you're doing the work as well and starting these necessary conversations. And I thank you for doing that. Where can people find you? Where can they follow you and see you on your journey?
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me on here. It was so much fun. It was actually really nice to dive a bit deeper into my story. So thank you very much. But if anyone wants to keep up with what I'm doing on my personal side of things, my name is just Matt LaFontaine on Instagram. I also host a mental health community that would benefit, I think, anyone and everyone, and it's called Safe Space Mornington. So if you want to find either of those, they're both on Instagram, and yeah, a good little insight into me.
Incredible. Well, once again, thank you so much. And thank you as well to everyone else out there for joining us for another Secret Sunday Session. We'll catch you guys all next time.